you end up getting these two camps, as everything online becomes, right? And you get the camp that's like, F your employer, be autonomous, go do your own thing, all that kind of stuff. It's like, if they're not giving you everything you want, they're terrible. And then you go to the employer pages and you see them being like, employees have no respect for the have no blah blah blah, and everyone's just at odds with each other in this whole process. And I always,
not a lot of nuance in the conversation.
Right. And I always, whenever I'm talking to folks, especially in the job search, and in this sort of context with the remote work for sure, but also in the case of like the interview and stuff like that, where it's like, the reason the interview is so hard is because you're only focused on yourself and you haven't thought about what the other person is dealing with. And the reason you can't get your hybrid workplace set up is because you haven't thought about how it impacts the employer and what they need to deal with in order to support that, or like the transition cost or any of that stuff. And so you end up just getting these two polarized points yelling at each other. But I do wonder sometimes, if employees want more flexibility, what sort of flexibility are they willing to give, right? And so that's always the question, because I'm always in between. I'm talking to the CEOs and the job seekers, and like, they're just not saying the same things. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. And I wonder if some of that's generational too, because arguably a lot of the people that are in power are either baby boomers or Gen Xers. And I'm a Gen X, and I was raised to think that, you know, we're kind of sandwiched between the millennials and the boomers, obviously. And we were kind of raised more to think like the boomers, you know, and so we thought that, yeah, you go to work and you work hard, you show yourself to be a hard worker. That's not to say that millennials don't work hard. I don't think that at all. It's not bashing millennials at all. I actually think they're awesome. But I think that there's a disconnect between the people that are in power and that have the leadership and make the decisions, and the people that are the employees. And I think that unless they start having that's like anything with a marriage or a friendship, or if you're not talking to each other and really trying to understand each other first and getting through what might be the solutions to these kind of challenge, these kind of rifts, or whatever you want to call them, you're not going to get anywhere, you know. And so I think there's actually some, I'm not a conflict resolution expert, but if you study conflict resolution at all, we're made to believe, right, that most of us, that compromise is always the answer to a conflict, right? Like, because conflict is two parties wanting different things, right? But actually, the experts say that it's collaborating is actually the way to get through a conflict, right? You keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. It takes longer. That's why it doesn't always happen. And it takes a certain trust, right, and container, but that's where you get solutions. And I think that needs to happen here, that these solutions need to kind of come from like deeper conversations that keep happening, and I don't know how you make that happen among, I think you're probably going to see some stalemates, and then you'll see some creative solutions. I think, we make fun of tech for having their cereal bars and their little pod chairs that people can work in when they don't want to work at their desk anymore and stuff. But honestly, I think those kinds of at least innovative ideas are what we're going to need to, ideas, just the willingness to kind of, to have those kind of ideas and, solutions, I think are what we're going to have to do to get through this.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because I do feel that people tend to forget that a lot of the things that we now make fun of, like the tech industry for doing, are the things that employees, they're the things that the employees asked for. Like, these are, this is and always has been a collaborative area of growth, right? What an office looks like, what a company looks like, and so on. It kind of, it starts with the Googles, it starts with the Facebooks, it starts with this crazy place that was in Chicago called Red Frog Events that had a big tree house in the middle of the office and a slide. And it's like, on the one hand, we look at it now 15, 20 years later, and we're like, that's kind of cheesy. Like, is that even necessary? Like, do I need to be on a swing in the middle of the office? But at the time, I remember every single person that I went to school with wanted to work at that company. And so it's so funny how, like, we look at these things and we go, oh my gosh, well, of course they gave us unlimited vacation because that means that we are not going to take the vacation, right? And we're going to end up
Mhm.
working more. It's like, yeah, but I wonder if they calculated that when the first company did that, or if that's just a byproduct that they didn't expect and now it's caught on and it's a trend. And sometimes we lack this understanding. We almost come into the job search with this idea of everyone is malicious, everyone has malintent, right?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, how do we get out of this mindset of like these companies are actively trying to hurt us? Because it can be a really rough journey to find your passion, to get a job, to make a career change, and all these different things. And you gotta do something to keep yourself positive. What have you sort of seen?
Yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, I think, I work in a company, I work in a town where, in the book, I think I call them prom dates. Like there's in any town you live in, um, there's companies that everybody wants to work at, right? And it's Nike here, right? Everyone wants to work at Nike and stuff, and I don't know. And I think you just hear about ideas that they've come up with to kind of keep people happier. And Tillamook is a cheese dairy company based in Portland. It's got some national presence. You might have heard of them, but I've heard they're doing some things that are kind of interesting with their workspace. I think maybe just like take a look at what's working. Go back to Richard Florida's stuff where he talked about how if you want to, attract creative talent, you're going to have to make your workspaces attractive, if nothing else, because creative people, prefer to work. And I find that to be true. I work with a lot of creative people. They don't want to work in an ugly gray the office like, setting, they
Hmm.
want, and just kind of tuning into each other, right? To what the needs are.